In the Assassin's Creed universe, the assassins are guided by 3 tenets that they must abide by or risk punishment. They are what make the order what it is, and more importantly, make the assassins who they are. These are 1. Stay your blade from the flesh of the innocent, 2. Hide in plain sight, and 3. Never compromise the brotherhood. These are the principles they follow. Now, whilst these 3 tenets are important to the lore, they're not exactly the ones I'm talking about. The 3 tenets I'm referring to are the ones that Ubisoft has set up since the beginning of the franchise. They are what make an Assassin's Creed game Assassin's Creed. These 3 would be the story, setting, and stealth. In this video, I'm going to justify my title and argue my point on how Ubisoft has broken these 3 fundamental rules to their games. If you enjoyed this video, a like and subscribe is very much appreciated, as it means I can focus more of my time on making videos like this one. Anyway, let's begin.
So I got out of the car to take a leak because I've been drinking, and I didn't know it was next to a children's park. But anyway, that's why this lady has to watch whenever I play with you.
Both hands on the book, please.
It's my son! Come on! Jeez!
Thank you, Maya.
Assassin's Creed has a special kind of story in the way that it's actually 2 stories mixed together. You have the olden day narrative that focuses on an ancestor set in different historical periods of time, and the modern day narrative where we join the fight to save the world from being fried up by the sun. I don't think many people would disagree with me when I say that the present day story has taken a massive step back ever since they rounded up Desmond's arc in AC3. Now, whilst it has picked back up a little bit with Layla, it still doesn't feel as important as before. It seems more like Ubisoft is just going with the flow and not actively trying to close off the modern day story because they need to justify making more games. The overall arc and storyline, where so much of history, the Assassin's Order, and basically Ezio's whole life led to Desmond joining the fight against the Templars, then finding the vault, making the decision to release Juno, and sacrificing himself in the process. This story was something that gave the game's importance we rarely, if ever, see. I really hope that Ubisoft will put more of an effort into the modern day story, because if they don't, then they may as well just ditch it and purely focus on the olden day narrative. And to touch on the olden day narrative, the length of the story in Odyssey in particular felt like filler. There were some amazing scenes for sure, but for each amazing scene there would be 5 lackluster ones trying to increase your overall game time and actively discourage you from completion.
Parkour! Michael! Parkour! Parkour! Extreme! Parkour! Parkour! Go! Go! Do me! Yeah! Okay! Yeah! Parkour! Get off!
Arguably, the biggest drawing point of each Assassin's Creed game is the setting. The mystery of the next location and the excitement to explore it is something that never gets repetitive no matter how many titles release. So then, how did Ubisoft break this tenet? Well, because even though the recent ancient Egypt and Greece settings have been visually stunning, they've also as a result taken away key gameplay components that the older AC games held as core features. The historical location of a game can alter many different elements such as weapons, armor, technology, story, exploration, and of course, the architecture. Free running across building tops and climbing structures to get from point A to point B has been a key staple of the game since the beginning. It was one of the biggest selling points when AC1 was unveiled. The buildings in Origins and Odyssey are so low and rarely lead into each other that parkour isn't really a thing to do anymore. You climb a house the same way you climb a tree, the same way you climb a hilltop. There is no denseness and verticality in the cities. Everything is open and spaced out. Take for example the free running and building layout in Unity. Whilst it had its fair share of flaws, the climbing and jumping had weight to it. It was seamless, not only in the way you traverse through the map with ease of movement, but also in the way builders and structures faded into each other. Ledges, trees, wooden beams, and ramps were specifically placed in various locations so that when you were jumping from roof to roof and window through window, there would always be something to attach onto the other side so you carry that momentum forward. Now compare that to Origins and Odyssey, where that seamless movement doesn't really exist or matter. I mean, even in Assassin's Creed 3 and 4, where climbing buildings to stalk your prey wasn't as big of a feature, it still had its cities packed with structures that would lead into one another. I wouldn't have much of an issue with this if it wasn't for the fact that we've had 2 of the previous installments both feel this way, and with the next game set in the Viking era, it doesn't look like it's about to change.
All right, all the lights are out. They must be asleep.
It's go time!
Peter, what the hell was that?
That's what you do, Lois.
The recent Assassin's Creed games have heavily focused on combat rather than stealth. You don't have a bigger say as before whether you want to take on missions in a stealthy or confrontational way. Most of the content forces you to tackle things head on simply because not only is it faster to do so, but it's also inevitable. I'm going to compare Unity again because even though it was one of the least favourite AC games, it was praised quite a bit on its mission structure. Most of the missions were very open-ended. You could choose to approach them in many different ways. Take for example the Notre Dame mission. You could get to your target by climbing into the church, fighting your way in, assassinating your way through from enemy to enemy, using using bombs as a distraction, finding a secret passage, or doing a little quest that leads you in the designated area. And if you, for example, fail in the stealthy option, it wouldn't desynchronize you, you just have to deal with the consequences and fight your way out. And because combat wasn't the key focus of the game, it made it so you didn't really want to get into altercations. I'm not saying that we need to go back to mainly stealth, just that we need a better balance of the two options. The games are also far less realistic now. There's no weight to the world. Everything feels floaty, from the way you run across the map, climb stone structures that have no handles anywhere, or the way you jump off from the highest peak of the tallest tower only to not have a pair of broken legs. Is it more fun to jump off anything and not die? Yes, but does it in turn ruin immersion and make the game feel less consequential of your actions? Well, you can be the judge of that. The most important part of stealth were the assassinations. In the recent titles, you'd have to spend a crap ton of time solely upgrading your hidden blade or spear in Odyssey to perform a one-hit assassination, and that would usually be towards the end of the game, but even then, there were enemies that couldn't be one-hit killed. So basically, taking over a stronghold without ever being detected is damn near impossible, because there'd always be that one enemy or two that no matter how deep I shoved my hidden blade in his neck, he would still brush off and alert everyone of my presence. Now don't get me wrong, one-hit assassinations don't need to work on big bosses, especially the ones based on the location's mythology. That I do understand, but I do think a better system is needed. Take for example Sekiro's Shadows Die Twice, where most enemies are one-hit kill, but there are a very rare few that can't be taken down with a single strike. But if attacked from the shadows, give you a clear advantage in the battle. They could also create a system similar to AC1, where once detected, the enemies are then always on high alert, so if you were to jump down on them again from above, they'd be prepared and block it, making it so you can't just assassinate, get detected, hide for a few seconds, let the guards forget that a murder just took place, and then rinse and repeat. In conclusion, Assassin's Creed is an amazing franchise, and though it has its fair share of critics, a lot of the people still love the games. Being a big AC fanboy myself, I can't help but want the games to take certain steps in my preferred direction, and though I understand why Ubisoft has gone the route of ditching the grounded and realistic nature of some of the older games, I still hope that they can get back some of the luster that the previous titles held as core features. Those three tenets are what made an Assassin's Creed game. They got the franchise this far, so I'm sure they can carry them even further.